What up, YouTube? Dark Dub coming at you from a redstone world here, where we are going to talk about hidden inputs today. Okay, here I have a one-sided jet door that looks just like the wall, but there's a button there, and that button kind of gives away that something's up. Now I could take that button off, and then as you come along, you just got to know where to put it. So that's one way of hiding them, but I'm going to get a little more intricate with this. Okay, it is going to be broken up into 3 parts. Okay, we got part 1 is going to be on the main circuits. I'm going to show you how to build the ones that we're talking about. I am going to explain how they work, and I'm going to show ways to hide some of them. Part 2, we're going to talk about conditional input. Okay, now what that means is you add conditions to it. So like the button on the wall there, it could be there and just not work unless something else, like say you got to have somebody standing on a pressure plate and then you push the button and it works, or say you got to have a chest empty and you push the button and it works. Okay, and we're going to explain the logic gates, how and why, and then we're going to give some examples of each. And then part 3 is supporting circuits. Okay, and we'll talk about those as we're going, but basically, so what I've got is this button right here. You push it and it opens, but then it closes again. So when you get to the other side, what do you do to open it again? That's what we're talking about with supporting circuits. Okay, that's not actually how you hide the thing, but it's how you get it to function properly with the circuits that you're using. Okay, so let's go ahead and get on with this, shall we? Now the first ones we'll talk about are the torch key and the dust key. Okay, these are 2 that a lot of people use, and there's good reason for it. They are kind of easy to make. So what we've got is, if you look, you place a torch up there. Okay, now if you put a torch there, that torch is off. Okay, so if you then take a piston, sticky piston, and bring it up here facing down into the block that you placed the torch on, now if you'll notice, with nothing down here, it's up against that torch and it is extended. Okay, so now when you place this, it pops it off for you, and then you just take the input either from here or from here. The next one we're going to deal with is the dust key. So it's going to be basically the same as the torch key, but when you place the dust, it goes instead of when you place the torch. Now what we're going to do is, when you place the dust, you want it to power. Okay, so that means either this block or that block are hard powered. Okay, and because I want to pull this down to remove the dust, I'm going to hard power this guy. Actually, no, I'm going to hard power this guy from the side. So let's go ahead and put a block right here, and I'm going to put a repeater on that. And then to keep this guy going, I'm going to put a block of redstone. Now you'll see that this is constantly on. Now when I place my redstone there, it turns on. Now the next thing we want to do, that would power this. Okay, so now we'll put a torch there, and you'll see that it's on like nothing's the matter. And then when you put this here, the torch goes out. That's where you're going to take your output from, or your input for the door is going to come from that. That's going to be your output from this service circuit, input to the door. But first, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want that dust to be removed once you use it. So we'll go ahead and place a temporary block here, and I will remove this because it's easier. And we'll put that there. That looks good. And let's replace that. Now when I put dust here, you'll see my circuit's not done. Haha. So let's go ahead and put this here with 1 down, 1 more down, and then we'll run this guy right into the piston. Dust, 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 and dust. And you will see that now when I place this, and it doesn't matter how you hook it to the piston, just so that you power the piston from there. And then to make it look prettier, you know, from this side, you would probably want to cover it up with some blocks. Okay, so then now when you place it, all you see is the repeater down there, and if somebody stands on it, yeah, you get stuck in the block for a second, but you can always just jump right back up out of there. Now anybody following me from PS4 is probably used to the old-fashioned one of these. You know about the painting trick, but it works a little bit different in this one. So in the PS4 version, we would do like this and then place a door here. And you'll see that when you throw an item on here, the door does open and you would just be able to walk through. But the issue with that here is, if you'll notice, the painting will not place on the door. That's too bad. So we got to do it a little bit different. It will still, however, place on the pressure plate. And so that's basically what we do. We just put the painting over top of that. And if you need to see how to build that, it's pretty much just like this here. You can put a pressure plate on that, or you can put a pressure plate on that. Of course, if it's glass here, you won't be able to draw any input from it. It'll have to be like right there to get anything. And I guess that's okay, but if you'll notice, ta-da, it does fit on there. So I like this one. So next we're going to talk about hoppers, okay? Now what makes a hopper able to be a hidden input is its capacity to draw items through transparent blocks. Okay, see that? So you can have a floor of slabs and just throw something there, and now it doesn't work through glass. That's okay. Glass is transparent, but it's not a partial block, even though it is transparent. And the stair also counts as a partial block. Now, one thing to note, if you drop your item directly on the top of this, that part of the step counts as a full block. That part it does draw, and it looked like it might have gone there, but let's go ahead and cover those up, and then it took. And what makes that so big is that with this hidden, you can then take a comparator out of the side of that, which most of you already know, and then you see that it gave a brief flash. Now with that brief flash, you can throw that into a T flip-flop just like the others, so you get a constant signal, which is usually necessary for redstone doors. But if you don't want to go the T flip-flop route, what you can do is you can throw your hopper line directly into a chest. Okay, and then you could have that chest have the comparator out of the side of it, which would give a constant signal until the item is taken out. So then, bow, now your door is open, and now your door is closed. And if you'll notice, I have a hopper facing out this way on top of that. Most of you probably already know how to make this, but I'll show you again. Got the comparator running out of that hopper. We will place a block here. That doesn't have to be redstone conductive, but I like it to be the same. Don't know why. So then we'll place dust here, and then we'll remove this block and place a torch here. The line of hoppers could end up right here. This could be you could have a slab right on top of this. Okay, so this could be right underneath a slab floor. And right now, because I don't have anything in the filter, anything takes. But as I fill this thing up, what you're going to do is the item that you want to filter through, let's just say I'm using sticks because it was easy to grab, but you want it to be something that nobody's just going to want to throw. So if it was diamonds, you know, you don't want to use 24 diamonds in this thing or however many it takes, but it would make it harder for someone to just randomly find. So you would basically place an item in each one of these, and then I think it's 24 altogether. So looking at it, it is 22. This one will hold 22. This one will hold 1. Okay, now if you look out of this, I have a comparator facing out. This repeater is going to take power from this block when that dust powers, and it's going to turn this torch off, which is going to allow one item down through here. Okay, so you'll notice there's an item in here, and there are 22 items in here. So what's going to happen is, if I throw another stick down there, let me grab the rest of my sticks. If I throw another stick down there, it's going to do just like that. It's going to filter through, and it's there. I still have 22 there. I still have 1 there. Now you could take this a step further, and you could go to an anvil, and you could name this stick, and then you could put it in there, and it could be nothing but that in here, and then someone would have to have a stick with the same name and throw it on there in order to open your door. One caveat for all of you PlayStation 4 people, all y'all coming over from the Legacy Edition, check this out, okay? Soul Sand, it does nothing, it will not draw through the Soul Sand. And now that we've gone over hoppers and sorting devices, we will go over, let me get a block here, we will go over mine carts with hoppers, okay? Now let's take this rail out. Boom. Okay, so now if I place a block up on top of this, throw an item here, it took it. You see that? So you do not necessarily have to have a slab on top of this guy if you just sit a minecart with hopper on top of it. Then you could just, but you can't use a filter with this, because what's going to happen is this is going to take any item, okay, and then if it's not the right item, this won't take it, so it won't trip your door. Okay, so this I should have told you about before I got to the item filter, but this goes with the hopper lines. It's just a better way of hiding it here. And in item or in mob farms, what's done a lot of times is you just run a track around underneath something and it just collects anything that lands on that specific area. Now you don't want to do that here, because if a cart is on the tracks and it's moving, you can hear it, so you're not really hiding a whole lot. Somebody will know something is there. Another thing I want to put in here for all of you Legacy Edition people that are coming over from that version. So this used to be a thing in Legacy Edition, okay? You can't see that right there from here, but if you till that soil you can see it. You know what though? You can't function it. In the original PlayStation version you could function it, but this tilled soil right there acts as a block, I guess. So on to part 2, conditional inputs. So like I was talking about before, if you've got a button just right there on the wall, that's not really, you're not hiding anything, but you can hide something if the button's just out in plain sight, if it functions something else normally. So here we have a pressure plate that opens that door, okay? But say you want a hidden input to that door and you want to run it off of this pressure plate, okay? How are we going to do that? So say you're in a storage room here, and say this is one of like 30 different chests, okay? Say they're all way full. This one's got like 7 or maybe 3 or 4 stacks of just trash blocks that nobody's ever going to want, okay? Not so much that you can't put it into your own inventory to empty it, okay? This pressure plate is going to need to power something underneath. So that dust there will power when you hit that pressure plate. We need a hidden input for this door, so let's come down here. We're going to want to power that block, okay? To do that from below, we need to come in with a torch, which keeps that open, okay? So what we're going to want is this would have to have a torch on it too to run into that. And what that does is inverts it. So now, because if you don't put this on and you just do like this, stepping on this would close it. So you want to invert it because it's inverted there. Okay, so now that works, but we don't want it to work like that, okay? We want it to only happen when this is empty. Okay, so we're going to come over here to this comparator. So if we want it to happen when this is empty, what we want this to do is lock that off when it's on, okay? So we're going to go ahead and come under this guy right here and place a dust. This comparator, when there's an item in the chest, powers this block, which powers that dust, okay? So then we're going to come from underneath there, because that dust powers the block that it's on. We're going to take a repeater out of that, and we're going to run that into a block. come down here. That runs into a torch, or not a torch, but a piece of dust. Okay, and then we're going to come down here with a block down. I'm going to place a repeater there. So what this effectively does is when there are items in this chest that is powered, sending power to this, making this torch stay off. So no matter what you do here, that dust is still powered by that repeater. But when we take all the items out, the door is still closed, but not now. And you might want a straighter path to your door, but that's the main gist of it. While these are blocks that nobody's ever going to want that you're supposed to place in there, what if somebody's running around just stealing everything? Okay, so now they know what your input is. But what we can do is we can add another chest to the mix. Okay, so whereas this one has to be empty, this one has to have things in them, and I want a specific amount of things in this one. So instead of just coming off of this first one, we'll come off of the second one or further down, and we'll come off of it with a torch. Okay, and we'll run the line that comes from that torch directly to this line. Okay, and with what I've got here, I can run it into this. Well, let's just see. I'm going to come with dust, so I can't. Okay, so we're going to come off of that one with a torch and dust. If we run that dust right onto this, that should do the trick. And the reason that should do the trick is because when this dust hits this, when that takes power, it's just like this taking power. So I've basically made a logic gate with this and that. I believe it's an and or gate. An and not, I don't know. I don't know the names of them, but as you'll see, it's not opening. Even though, oh, that's right, I gotta take those out. Okay, so this one is supposed to have a few items in it. Okay, this one is supposed to have no items in it, and of course it doesn't open. Okay, supposed to be if you take these out it opens earlier, but that doesn't work anymore. Now with all the items out of that and at least enough items in this, now when I step on it, look at that. And you can add as many chests as you want in this way. You'll notice that this one that was necessary to be empty has no power running into the invert, whereas this one that requires items inverts before it goes into the door. Now, there were a few times in this video that I mentioned a T flip-flop, okay? So let's go ahead and go over what a T flip-flop is and what it does, okay? Here's the build that I'm going to give you, okay? You got a dropper facing up into a dropper facing out. Now, the direction this dropper is facing out, you're going to place a hopper facing into the bottom dropper, okay? You come on top of that hopper, you place a comparator there, and then you place a repeater right here. Okay, now this comparator has to be going into a block or you will lose your item, okay? Now put an item you do not need in this bottom one, okay? And now when you give this power, so now when you give this a quick pulse, you've got a constant signal out the other side. And that's basically what this does. This turns the functionality of a button into the functionality of a lever. Okay, so that's there. If you have a full, like if you have something that's constantly giving power and you just want to give a quick pulse, not sure why you, really not sure why you would want to do that for opening a door or a hidden build, but you might. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you what you would want to do is you would want, and I don't have an observer on me. You need an observer for this, and you need a sticky piston for this. Two things that I don't always carry in my redstone toolbar. But so you do like this, okay? So you got a sticky piston facing that way with a repeater facing out from the sticky piston. Now, let's go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to want a block there. So let's put a block, not there, but there, where that's going to hit it when it's extended. And then we'll put the dust on top of it so you can see. And then I'll grab my lever out. Now when we flip this, it's going to just pulse that. It's only on the start, so it can stay on as long as it wants. When it turns off, nothing. If you want it to go when it turns off instead of when it turns on, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come at it with a torch. What that does is that makes it out on the off and in on the on. One thing I will say, when you're using the observer, if you're going to run the observer into any kind of pulse extender, you're going to want a repeater, and I generally like to go 4 ticks. Some of them you only have to have a repeater there, some of them you only have to have it on 2 ticks, but for the pulse extenders I like to use, you have to have it on 4 ticks. Now let me show you this pulse extender. Okay, so let's go ahead and place some blocks here. I use comparator, this way, comparator that way, and the reason I do this one that way, straight from that, is if you put it here, that dust loses 1 signal strength before it hits that and goes out. Okay, I want it to lose none, so that's why I hit it like that. And then you put like that, so then when I give it a quick pulse, notice how it stays on for a little while. With a repeater or an observer, it will not do. It will loop and you will get a flash on the other side, kind of like a small clock. Okay, so now that I've gone over everything, let's go ahead and put it all together for you real quick. So I'm going to use the torch key because it's the easiest one. So I'll go ahead and remake the torch key here. And there is my torch key. Pretty simple to make, took me longer than it should have. So then when you place your torch right here, the torch is removed. Okay, so that's going to flip this. Let's see, what do we want? Going into here, okay, this is constantly taking power. So if we then run this like so, it's on, and if we throw our torch here, boom, that didn't open all the way. So you see what has to happen is you have to throw a pulse extender on there to get it to open and stay open. Now with that, you do not want to come out of the pulse extender from something that's already lit, because what's going to happen is the pulse is already there. Okay, see that? And then when you hit that, this does not lose power long enough for that to turn off. Okay, so you do not want to come into your pulse extender hot. Okay, you want to come into it with a torch that's already off, or with a repeater. And then you want to come off of the pulse extender inverted, like so. Okay, so, and look at that. You know what happened there? I'll tell you what happened there. Same thing as what would have happened with an observer. Okay, so basically what is needed is we have to place a repeater. One thing you can do to this type of pulse extender to make it last a little bit longer is you can take and place it into a block instead of a dust. Just one, okay? Because if you do like this, then as soon as you give it power, it stays on forever. You can't turn it back off without breaking a block. Okay, so you only do one, but if you do this one, then instead of losing signal strength on both sides, it only loses 1 signal strength on one side. So it takes twice as long to turn off. Okay, and at this juncture, if we do it here instead of there, then we can invert off of it. Now we place that there, we can remove that. No, we can't remove that. We need that. So let's go ahead and put that there. And you notice how it's still flashing. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this first. And it stays on. So 2 ticks is what you would need to come off of that with. And then because that will power a dust, we'll just place a repeater there instead. Boom. Now, if we place our torch in just the right spot, we get our torch back and it stays open long enough for us to walk through. Now, that might not be necessarily what you want. You might want it to open up and stay open until you get to the other side and press a button. Okay, I don't blame you. I like that one a little bit better too. From there, what you're going to do is you're going to run this puppy here into a T flip-flop. Okay, so as you'll see, I came off of the torch that I placed on the sticky piston. I ran it into a dust, then into the repeater that goes into the T flip-flop. The reason for that is because when you're on the other side of your door, you want to be able to make the button that you push hit something over here. It's got to hit this dust. If you've got this all the way up against there, there's no way to activate that repeater without activating this sticky piston, and that's not what we want. So, okay, so we've placed our button right on the outside, right once you're past the door there's your button, okay? We're gonna come out of the block that the button's on with dust, okay? And we're gonna run that dust directly into the dust that comes off of this torch, and it will power this T flip-flop, which will activate the door. So dust, dust, dust. And as you'll see, now that we're through the door, we cannot close the door. And the reason we cannot close the door is because there is no item in this. And on top of that, this is only going to give a signal strength of 1. Okay? So I forgot 2 things there. Always good to test. Now we can close the door with this button though. And we can open it with this button. At least I thought we could. Okay, so what I had going on, the reason it was not opening and closing properly is because the button being right here activates that piston. Okay, and when that piston's activated, it can't deactivate elsewhere. So the timing's off. You can't have the button right past it, but you can have it one more past it. If that makes sense. So this side opens and closes, and this side closes and opens. Alright, so if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will catch you on the flip side. It's been real. Peace.